S3?
So we're.
And what is S3 for people who don't know?
So who knows? Raise your hand.
Can you hear him at all?
Amazon S3.
Yes, I can. Okay, cool.
So,
Oh,
most of the people.
We've simplified the setup.
So it's Amazon's platform that allows you to store data on their data centers, their cloud. And so we're building a platform that's similar to that allows you to put and get data as objects on this cloud, but it goes to a very different place. So for Amazon, you push it to their API, it goes to their data center somewhere in New York or Germany or wherever. In our system, that file is encrypted locally, broken up into small pieces, and distributed to a peer-to-peer network. So the key difference between something like Amazon and us, number one, is the security. Files are encrypted locally on your hard drive, and you're the only one who has access to those keys. So not us, not any of the third-party devices that are storing the data, just you, the user. So if you're concerned about your privacy and security, we all have heard of these more recent hacks, Ashley Madison and Target and Sony, and all these people are just like, oops, we lost all our user data, like, sorry about that. If you're concerned about those things, that's one of the things that we have an advantage over Amazon S3. We get hacked? Oh well, we don't have the keys to the data. Number two is that since that data is broken up into small pieces and distributed all over the world, that allows us to do some cool things that Amazon S3 can. So one, we can serve data to places where there aren't a lot of tech infrastructure built up. So Amazon S3 is probably not going to have a data center built in Somalia. But all we need is a couple of people in Somalia to install our software, and we'd be able to serve data very quickly, very easily in those places. The other thing is that if we look at the people that we're actually storing the data with and do a little analysis there and a little optimization, we can get much faster speed. Because we can say, okay, you're here. We have some guy who's 3 buildings away that we can store this data on, so when we want it back, we can do it very quickly. Versus a data center that's 3 states away. So those are 2 benefits. The smaller benefits are things like cost. You're starting at a price that's half the amount of Amazon S3 and other competitors. And it's all open source. So if there's something that you want in the software, you can go in and build that and add that. Since it's all an open system and you control it. So those are some of the reasons why we think we're better than something like Amazon S3. It's a completely different platform on the back end, and that enables us to do a lot of cool things on the front end for the actual application.
So are you live, or are you still in test mode?
Yeah, so right now you can sign up, and you can store data on the platform. We're taking in lots of bugs and fixing those as we go. Right now, we call it closed beta. So you can sign up. It's just we haven't publicly posted it. So if you're an enterprising user, you can just go to our Slack and ask to sign up. So we're going to Berlin to launch our open beta. So all that's going to be public. We're going to be onboarding 20,000 people we have in queue and having open access for them. So right now, it is free for anyone to use. And test out and help us find bugs and issues and get more stable before we'll actually charge it.
Do you think the primary user base will be people like us, like individual users, or do you think it will be big companies that say, oh, I can store 100 terabytes on this platform really easily for a lot cheaper? What do you think is going to be the primary user?
So our primary users for this is more developers and power users. We see as we have this great object storage platform that can store data. We really want to build another sync and share app, and then try to teach grandma how to use it. That's not the best use of the resources at the time. Or we can say, hey, we have a base level platform that you can use to store data. We give that out to 5 developers, and they can build that out into their application and serve 5 million users. Users don't have to know or care about Bitcoin or blockchain technology or anything that's going on under the hood. All they know is they sign up, oh, it feels a little faster. Oh, it's cheaper than all the other providers because our costs are lower. And they experience it that way, not directly through the platform. So a lot of people confuse a little bit with Dropbox. but really we're the layer underneath. For years and years and years, Dropbox used Amazon S3 to store the data. They didn't store any of the data. They just built the front-end application. So that's now changed. But for years and years and years, all the data that was being stored was actually managed by Amazon. And they were just front-end applications. So we're that layer below that stores all that data that allows you to build a Dropbox-like application, a backup-like application, and give all these tools to developers. So again, the end user doesn't have to worry about that stuff. They just get their normal applications that you're already used to, and again, it's just a little bit faster, it's more secure. I
was wondering, do you have like redundancy or minimum requirements? So like, what about servers go down and chunks of your data?
Yeah, so the way we do that is there is multiple.
Yeah.
Reverting to my old habits of forgetting that there's actually a microphone. This is the video?
This is the microphone.
This is the microphone.
Yes.
And the video. Okay, so I guess I'll kind of do this.
Nah, just
All right.
Let's not jostle any wires. It's working.
All right, so back to your question. So you said, is there redundancy? Yes. So there's multiple copies of each file in the network. What we do is we break it up into small pieces and then we've got like parity chunks from that. So if, let's say, we're storing it on your laptop and you accidentally push it out the window, we're doing constant checks to make sure those files are still available. So we're doing this anywhere from a 10-minute to an hour period. So we go like, oh, you don't see him anymore. He's not online. You can't find that file. And so we take one of these other chunks and put it on, let's say, his. So again, we have a whole audit system that's whole job is to make sure those files are still available online. And if we lose one of them, then
like, if I would like, what would I get from like storing somebody's stuff on my computer?
you get paid money.
Okay.
So that's good enough incentive for most people. So, Dan?
You get paid.
So you get paid in storage coins right now. We'll probably look at adding some other payment methods, maybe a couple months after we get everything up and running. But right now we're using storage. Correct. So you can go from storage coin to Bitcoin to dollar.
Firstly, Dogecoin is the normal route.
Hey, if Dogecoin is the normal route, I convinced my landlords to pay my rent. So we're going to make that process a lot easier as things go on. But right now, it's a storage coin again that can be converted on an exchange. Perfect.
What about the file size? If you're storing your computer, does that mean there'll be a limit?
Right, so let's say I want to store my mega collection of cats. That's like 50 terabytes, because I really like cats, and that might necessarily fit on your hard drive. So it just comes down to the process of when we're actually preparing the file. We're going to break that down into more manageable chunks. And so those might actually have 50 terabytes of cat pictures. It's going to be broken down into maybe 8 or 16 megabyte chunks each. And each one of those are going to go on different computers. So it's not transferred all as one chunk to someone else's computer. It's broken down, and everyone in this room might have like an 8 megabyte chunk of my collection of cats.
So like somebody else can do it.
Well, we have multiple redundant copies. So let's say I take. Let's say I take my pictures and I'm storing them redundantly on your computer, your computer, your computer. Your computer goes down. Then we say, okay, her computer has gone down. We can take his copy and put it on this. Yes. More participants, the better, because that gives us more options in terms of where we store the file, what kind of connectivity we have. You might have dial-up, and she might have Google Fiber. So, like, she's going to be a much better host to store the data.
Is that like in how much you get reimbursed for bandwidth factory?
Yeah, so you're getting paid both for the data that you're storing and the data that you're transferring out. And you're not going to get paid too much for the data you're storing, but that just gives you the ability to transfer that data where you get the report. So the transfer is, you get a lot more money out of transfer than you get out of actually storing.
Probably.
Probably. Depends on your
That's the expectation, but how things actually work out in practice is
more of a market.
yeah, it's a market. It's the real world. You can say as much as we want about the software, but
Pros and cons of works against Taco Labs.
So Taco Labs, oh, those are some great guys.
Tahoe Labs is a file system. We're an object store, so it's a different purposes of file systems, more for like accessing things through directories. We're more of an unstructured. I have an object ID that I want, and you put it in the system to get it back. So whereas Tahoe Labs has structured storage, we're unstructured.
So if I wanted to start like you have to speak out.
Can
So
you-
if I want to start using my computer so that I want to start storing stuff on it, what do I have to do?
Can you repeat the question for him?
So he's wondering if he wants to share his hard drive with the network, what does he have to do to get that process rolling? So it's pretty simple. We have a client. You just go to storj.io. There's a button in the top right-hand corner that says Start Your Drive. And we have an application that works on Windows, Mac, and Linux. If you want to get really technical, you can run it in a console and toaster. But it's a simple application. You enter the payment address, you enter what directory you want to store the files of data, and how much data you want to store. So we really spent a lot of time to make it as simple as possible. So that this is something that you just, again, download an application, fill out 3 fields, hit go, and like minimize it, never worry. Check it later, when you have some file contracts and get some money for it. But again, you don't have to worry about it.
Efficient and small enough to run on that.
Yes, absolutely. So we have many people that run external drives, often with Raspberry Pis. The computation power needed is not there. We're still optimizing that a bit, but thank you for that.
So how will the service relate to the interface files?
So here's IPFS, and certainly for that, is I think addressing more different problems. So we're really providing a layer where developer can say, I want to go store my data on this platform. I can put my data on the platform. I can get it off. I know that it's there when I want to access it. And I can take it. IPFS is more of a kind of finding and addressing that content. How do I know it's on this computer versus this computer? It doesn't take care of if her computer goes offline. How do I recover it?
And again, IPFS is a file system. We're an object store. It's very different use cases.
You're at a lower level.
It's not so much a lower level as storage comes in 3 basic types. You have a file system where you address things by their directory. You have a block structure where everything's in a nice, neat block and everything's very rigid. And we're an unstructured file store. You just take an object, which is a file with all of its relevant metadata, and you shove it onto a drive wherever it fits. So an object store is generally better for larger static things that aren't going to change very much. You just shove them on, and then you can read them any number of times. A file system is better for things that are going to be changing fairly often. So you see, IPFS has this great distributed, file system with Git-style versioning and really awesome things for files that are going to be served often, changed often, interacted with often, and are fairly small. We're more oriented towards big things that are staying the same.
Okay, can we let Open Bazaar give their
Yeah.
real quick?
Step back.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. I'll just get started. So, I'm Sam Patterson. I'm the operations lead on the Open Bazaar project. I'm joined by Chris Pacia, who's the lead back-end developer on the project. I'll just jump right into it, give you guys sort of an overview of Open Bazaar, what we've been trying to do, what we're going to do in the future, and etc. So, commerce online today basically means using Amazon, eBay, Etsy, all kinds of different online centralized platforms, right? So there are a few problems doing that. So these centralized platforms, they use centralized payment systems, such as credit cards or PayPal, which have a few problems. Since you guys are at a sort of a Bitcoin, a crypto meetup, I'm sure you guys already understand that. But credit cards are controlled by these companies who can reverse charges. They necessarily charge fees for using them, and the platforms themselves charge fees for using them as well, because they're providing a service for people, right? Buyers and sellers both come to a central point, and the platform takes a 10 or a 15 or even a 20% cut of each transaction as their fee for that service. They also do things like censoring items on the platform. So naturally there are some things that are regulated by maybe the government, which are not allowed. But there are also other things that they may censor based on their own what's best for their own business and not necessarily best for their customers, right? So if you were to try to buy a Google Chromecast media streaming stick on Amazon, you can't do that because Amazon sells its own Fire Stick and they don't allow the competition to sell on their platform, right? So that type of thing has become problematic. They also collect the data, both of the buyers and the sellers on the platform, right? So everyone who's doing anything on their platform, that one central actor is collecting all of that information. And lastly, one drawback of using a centralized market is dispute resolution. It's sort of my way or the highway, right? If you have a problem with the other person in the transaction, you are forced to use the dispute resolution of that platform. You have no other choice. And what a lot of people have had a problem with, especially on maybe eBay, is that they pretty much always side with the buyer. There's a lot of deference to the buyer's side, and there's a lot of scamming going on. So those are some of the problems with these existing services. And Open Bazaar is an attempt to create a decentralized marketplace that solves some of these problems. And it's now live. We launched in early April, so you can go try it out. But the idea is basically we're creating peer-to-peer trade. There's no middleman in the middle of these transactions. So the benefits are each user runs the software themselves, and it uses Bitcoin. So there are very low fees. The trade is occurring directly between the two people, sending the Bitcoin. So there's no chargebacks, there's no censorship of the payment medium. Because there's no middleman in the trade, there's no cut, right? There's no 10, 15, 20% fee, because there is no one in the middle, literally, to take a cut of that transaction. That also means that there is no censorship on the platform, right? You're not getting permission from someone else to post your goods. You're literally running a piece of software on your own computer, or maybe renting a virtual private server from somewhere else, but you control it, and you host the listings yourself, and then you offer them up to anyone else on the network, right? So there is no one else to come in and say, oh, you can't list that, or we don't like that product. You host it yourself. And no data collection as well, right? So again, the only data that you're giving up is the data you volunteer to give up to the other person involved in your trade. There is no central organization that sees what's occurring between buyers and sellers. And in this peer-to-peer network, all of the traffic going back and forth is all encrypted. So the trade being done is necessarily private, though not necessarily anonymous. And we can talk about some of the that kind of stuff later. And then another advantage is dispute resolution, right? So instead of being locked into having one party to offer dispute resolution, Open Bazaar actually creates an open marketplace of third parties, which we call moderators on the network, who control the third key in a 2 of 3 multisig. And I probably don't need to explain that to you guys, but the bottom line is, with Bitcoin, because there's no chargebacks, if a buyer were to send the money directly to the seller, well, then the seller has the money, and if they get scammed or if they never deliver the product, the buyer doesn't get their money back. With a 2 of 3, you have 3 people that control basically the funds. The buyer puts it into that escrow account, and then you need 2 of those people in order to release the funds. Normally, the buyer and the seller are those 2. Everything goes through, buyer gets the product, seller gets the money, everyone's happy. If there's a dispute, then that third party can come in, and listen to both buyer and seller and release the funds to whoever they believe is the party that's in the right. So that's sort of an overview of what Bitcoin, what Open Bazaar is, and what we're trying to do here. The very bottom line to take away is Bitcoin is decentralized money. Open Bazaar is decentralized trade. So I can give you a little bit of a history of the project, and then open up for some questions. This started in April 2014 as a fork of Dark Market. That was a hackathon entry in Toronto by Amir Taki and a few other folks. Basically, they created a prototype, a proof of concept, of a peer-to-peer distributed marketplace. Now, their focus was more on, as the name implies, the dark side of markets, and they decided not to continue development of the platform. They weren't going to keep it up. They won the hackathon with that entry, and they took the money and they continued development of Dark Wallet, a different project. So Brian Hoffman, who's the leader of the Open Bazaar project, forked the code away because he wanted to continue development, and also changed the name to Open Bazaar because we want to have not so much a focus just on the dark stuff. We think decentralized trade can be valuable for anyone. And so we kind of worked on this for a year as a side project that a bunch of people were just passionate about, but it wasn't our jobs. I joined the project soon after, and then lots of people have joined after that. And what we found was basically after a year or so working on this, we had enough interest from the community, and we thought the idea was valuable enough that we really wanted to do it right. We wanted to hire some quality developers, like Chris on the call now, and really get this thing done right. So we approached some VCs, and we got a round of funding to create a company, which is called OB1, and basically a year after we got the funding, we just spent that whole time developing Open Bazaar version 1. Which was launched back in April. And so far, since I think April 4th was the launch date, we've had about 150,000 downloads or so from 185 countries around the world. We've really gotten a lot of people to try the thing out. There are thousands of items for sale on the network right now. It's actually neat. There's a couple search engines that have popped up to index and display listings on Open Bazaar live. There's one that I might show you guys later called Duo Search, which shows how many items are live right now. And it's really fun to go through and see what people are selling. And anecdotally, I run the Open Bazaar merchandise store myself, and we've sold hundreds of these pins that say "Free the market, free the world," just like the Bitcoin pins. Stickers and T-shirts and all that kind of stuff. So it's great to see people from all over the world buying stuff to support basically a new open free trade platform. So I know we're going to do a demo a little bit later with the Storj guys to actually show how the platform works for a digital sale. Before we get to that point, it'd be great to open it up for any questions that you all might have. So if anyone has a question, we're happy to answer them. And obviously you'll need to unmute, or if your audio is not working, maybe type them in chat. I don't know. We can try charades, but that might be a little difficult. I'm afraid it still cannot hear you.
Oh, geez, that's bad.
Oh, there.
So my mic works. So I'll ask a question. You turn your volume down.
There you go.
All right. Any questions? All right.
I got a question. How does Open Bazaar make money? How do they make Bitcoin?
So the question was, how does Open Bazaar make money? And the answer is, Open Bazaar is actually just a piece of software. It's all open source, MIT licensed. Anyone can use it for free. There are no fees. There is no cut taken to use the software at all. So Open Bazaar isn't even an organization. Now, maybe your question was, how does OB1 make money, right? Yeah, okay, because that's the company. That is a very good question, and right now OB1 does not make money. The goal is basically this. We believe...
If you know, you can tell us.
Yeah, that's right. If you guys know, you can tell us. But the bottom line is this, right? We have the belief that decentralized trade is going to become very popular in the near future, right? The benefits being it's free to use. There's no cut taken. There's better data, no data collection, all that stuff, for the reasons already listed. If it's true that this platform is really good and a lot of people are going to be using it, then there's also an opportunity to provide services to all those people on the network, right? Now, just because you don't want to use a centralized platform that offers some services doesn't mean that you don't want someone to offer you any services. So we hope to come in and offer services to people on the network. Things like, it could be a search engine, could be hosting people's storage for them, could be enterprise software. We don't know exactly what it is yet. We have a few ideas, but yeah, offering services used on the network. That's the basic idea.
Any other questions?
Do you see Open Bazaar providing the ability to categorize and help users find stuff more easy, or is that going to be another service kind of built on top of Open Bazaar?
You can maybe take that one if you want.
Yeah, go for it, Chris.
Yeah, that's improving the discovery experience when you're browsing for products. That's like one of our top priorities where we're working on pretty heavily. And so the question is like how do we do this in a way that kind of doesn't compromise the core decentralization principle of the network, which is actually very difficult to do, because right now when you go on Open Bazaar, we're just like loading random products, and it's not a very good experience, and it kind of gets boring pretty quickly. So I don't think there's any way to do this without introducing some level of curation, but you don't want it to kind of be like a real heavily centralized curation where it just goes out and like hits up a server or something like that. So we're playing around with ideas that shouldn't be too difficult to implement, where you have kind of sort of user curation, some of which we'll probably do very heavily ourselves at OB1. But other users will be able to curate content as well. Maybe a bit of an analogy, I don't know, it's not going to look exactly like this, but it might be something similar to like Pinterest, where people can come up with lists of interesting content, or they can categorize it into whatever categories they want. And then there was, you guys mentioned IPFS earlier. The content that's ultimately curated would probably be seeded on IPFS that way, because this is like our new network architecture that we're working on, uses this under the hood. So the idea would be someone curates content, and once it gets kind of seeded and distributed onto multiple nodes, hopefully that content will be pretty persistent on the network. And so even if the originator of the content goes offline, people will still be able to view it. So we do hope to kind of see a very wide range of interesting product curation coming in the future.
Software, how are you going to sway people to use Bitcoin? I don't think I know there are many people, but still the mainstream is not the same.
So the question is, how do you persuade people to use Bitcoin? Because that's a necessary component to being able to use the system.
Oh, sorry. Was that me? Okay, there you go. It's a good question. I mean, if I'm sure there's a lot of people building on Bitcoin that would love to hear a compelling answer to that question. I mean, for us, it's decentralized money, right? That's what Bitcoin is, and we always felt like something's missing if you could only ever use your decentralized money on a centralized platform, right? So censorship and the gatekeeper problem that money used to have without Bitcoin is kind of what we're trying to solve with the market. But the way it goes for us is we already know there's a group of Bitcoin users out there who are interested in decentralization, privacy, and that kind of thing. And those are the people that should be using what we're doing. Your question is more, how do we make a pitch to new folks who may not care as much about decentralization or privacy or any of this stuff, why they should use Bitcoin instead? I think it's kind of the same question as, why would someone who doesn't care about decentralization use Open Bazaar at all, regardless of Bitcoin? And I don't know if I have a great answer for that, other than to say we expect that prices will be lower on the Open Bazaar platform than they will be on other platforms because there's no 10 or 15% cut being taken. And we expect that if there is enough of an advantage for merchants to use our platform because of the money they save, they will want users to be purchasing through our platform, and if that's true, they'll need to incentivize users by offering lower prices. So I think we've only been launched for, what, a month and a half, almost 2 months now. I think what we hope to see moving forward is that the pitch is going to be, you'll save money by using this platform and using Bitcoin together. That's the hope.
Go.
I had a question. So with that, with the because eBay charges 15%. I don't know what Amazon charges, but it's probably a boatload.
It's about the same as you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So do you guys have a marketing strategy to target those sellers, like particularly on eBay and Amazon and stores like that, to let them know that there is another option? Because they could set up parallel stores with the same merchandise. I mean, and I don't see for them, other than the barrier entry of figuring out how Open Bazaar works and how to set up a store, really costs them nothing. And anything they could sell on there, they get an additional 15% for. So seems like the lowest hanging fruit. So I was just wondering if you guys have a plan to try to recruit them.
Yeah, it's not even the fact that you can host 2 stores at once, right? Because Open Bazaar is completely open source, someone can even create a tool that just scrapes all of your listings for you and automatically uploads them, right? I mean, like, anyone could build on top of this ecosystem at no charge. It's MIT licensed, open source. Go for it. Do we have a marketing plan? Nothing too terribly specific. This has always been very much a community-driven kind of thing. We took funding to become a company and have a core group of just 6 people and staff that are distributed around the world. But the community around Open Bazaar is, hundreds and even thousands of users around the world. So we welcome anyone to help us out with the marketing side of it. Pretty much at this point, well, I can say it confidently at this point, we spent nothing on advertising or marketing. It's completely been word of mouth. So at some point we'll change, but for now it's still pretty much driven just by people who are passionate about using it.
Can you tell? Can you tell how many transactions and how many sales have happened since it is decentralized and no one's collecting information? Like how much money total has been transferred?
No. Sorry. There you go. Yeah. I gotta wait a second so it doesn't do that. No, the answer is because it's completely decentralized, right? A transaction is literally happening between person A's computer and person B's computer. The only proxy data we have is a couple things. One is Bitcoin transactions, right? So because we use multisig for moderated payments, maybe in theory you could look before Open Bazaar launched and after and see if there's an uptick, and maybe you could kind of parse out a little bit of data from that. But you don't have to use moderated payments, this multisig. You can use direct payments if you choose. If you trust the vendor, you can do that. So that's not a particularly good metric. Another is reviews. So on the Open Bazaar network right now, if you engage in a transaction and the funds are released, you can leave a review on the vendor, like pretty much any other e-commerce platform out there. The issue is you're not forced to do that. You're not forced to leave a review. And so what we're finding right now is roughly 15%-ish of orders, based on the data we know around transactions, 15% of people leave a review. It may be a little higher than that. We're not actually sure. This is just based on pretty much our Open Bazaar store. We've sold around 300 orders of our merchandise, and we've had 40-ish reviews left, right, something like that. So anyway, the proxy data suggests that there have been, several thousand transactions that have occurred based on the number of reviews, but that's really just a rough approximation. And we're pretty glad that we can't get a lot of specific data, to be honest, right? Like the whole goal of this is, not the whole goal, but a goal of this is to allow for more private trade. And if we really had all the data, that would be bad.
Cool, that's interesting. Thanks, Sean.
Sure. I have a question about kind of the persistence layer and IPFS, and then also a suggestion on where you focus. So my question is, can you talk a little bit more on the technical side, how you use IPFS to kind of keep the data up and available and persistent, so that if someone sets up a store and they go offline, that you maintain and make sure that you can still access it and see what they're offering?
Yeah, so that it's not actually using the code. The version that's out right now is not using it. Where I'm working on the next version that does. But basically, the way it works is you have a directory in your on your computer. It's just called your node directory, and the content in that directory is basically all your store content. So your product images, listings, like your profile, avatar, that sort of stuff. It's all in that directory. And then basically you're seeding that directory. And what we did now, anytime you make a change to that data, it's going to cause like a, wait, let me back up. That directory itself is identified by a hash, right? And so you could technically do like an IPFS query for that hash, and you could find the data in that directory, including all the product listings and all that. But your hash is going to change as you make some changes. So there's another kind of like DNS feature built into IPFS with like a mutable naming system. So what you can do is publish that hash in the DHT, a signed copy of that hash at the DHT at your peer ID, which is like your Open Bazaar nodes ID. And then that way anyone can do an IPNS query for that node ID, and they can get back for your node ID, and then they can get back your directory basically, and they can parse through that and see all of your listings. So anytime someone visits so that would be the main way they'll visit your store, is by they enter your peer ID, which we also use like the one name, their block stack for mapping that to something a little more human readable. But anytime someone visits your store, then they download the content of your store and they become a seeder of it. So that data then gets replicated on that node, and then the next person who wants to fetch that data from your store, they would pull it from either you or the other person. And so it's like the more people who visit your store, the more your data gets cached and replicated around the network. This model doesn't guarantee data persistence, so it's not guaranteed that your store is going to, that data will kind of be online. I think that's, from our perspective, this kind of simplifies a lot of the code. We don't have to do things like using tokens or bitcoins to purchase storage and stuff like that. But also it, from like a legal perspective, you're not storing stuff that you may not have consented to. It's not kind of being pushed off onto you in that context. So we can do things like you can send our node a message when you update that data, and then we can maybe crawl your store and seed it for you, and then that would kind of provide some level of persistence. If you go offline, at least you have one person seeding it. But yeah, it doesn't guarantee persistence, kind of out of the box, if you will.
And quick, do you have any numbers on kind of the performance of that? Because if you're storing that in a DHT, those aren't necessarily the most performant in terms of getting data back. So.
Yeah, so the DHT stores routing data, so it's just IP addresses basically. So when you look up content, you query the DHT, and then you get back a list of IP addresses of the people who have it. So it's not the actual content. The lookups are fairly fast for a DHT. We have our own, in our existing code base, a different DHT implementation. I can tell you doesn't work as well as the IPFS one, which is kind of part of the benefit of switching over to it. And I know Juan, who's like their main guy on that project, he thinks that they can like optimize the hell out of their DHT and make it like super fast. So I do hope to see that in the future. We'll see.
We're gonna do the demo now.
All right. Sam, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Let's see.
I can share my Open Bazaar screen.
Can you hear us, Sam?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, I am.
We can't hear Sam. Sam is James.
Hello, hello.
You should be able to hear through
all
mine, right?
Sam, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Perfect.
Yay.
So to avoid the feedback, we're going to keep you muted, unfortunately. But just type at me if you have any questions. I might not see it, but the other guy, he will. All right. So there's actually been a lot of talk tonight about IPFS, which isn't surprising because they're working on some really cool stuff. Chris and Sam were just talking about how you could use IPFS to make a storefront persistent even when the person offering it is offline, which is a really cool application. IPFS is better for things like that. A storefront is relatively small and compact and will update fairly often. People will drive by, see what's changed, they cache the new copy with the diffs and the really cool IPFS skip versioning system. Anyways, storage is a little different. We're an object store. We work better for much larger files that are being accessed but not written to. So you wouldn't really use storage to maintain a storefront on Open Bazaar. You would use storage to deliver digital content. So we haven't actually gone out with Open Bazaar and made an integration with Open Bazaar server where you can automatically deliver digital content. That's something we could do in the future. What I'm going to do right now is just give a quick demo of buying something on Open Bazaar, downloading digital content, delivered by Sam from his Open Bazaar store, and uploading it to our object store and downloading it back, moving it around a bit, and let's go ahead and do that. So this is the Open Bazaar interface over here. You've got the nice little support chat on the right. This is my personal page. You can see it's got my website here. I can go to Discover Stores. It'll open up just a random list of products that are available on Open Bazaar. So I'm going to go to Sam's personal store real quick, at Sam, I believe. And we'll see how long it takes me to connect. Maybe let's see, maybe I should go check my email, make sure this is right. Sam, you got any input here?
If you just...
Yeah.
There we go.
There you are.
Perfect. All right, so Sam has been kind enough to put up one of my favorite videos, Big Buck Bunny, part of the, let's see, I think they call themselves the Open Video Project. It's made in Blender and has a really permissive license. So I'm going to go ahead and buy a copy of Big Buck Bunny. We're going to buy now. So let's see. I don't really want to deal with the moderator unless Sam really thinks I should. I trust him. I've got him on video chat. And I know his email address, and I can mercilessly hunt him down. So I'm going to use direct payment. We're going to copy over the Bitcoin address to my Electrum wallet. And we're going to pay, let's see. Okay. Oh, that's my Bitcoin address. Sorry, that's the refund. Okay, we're going to pay this much. We're not going to pay it to my refund address.
Real quick, is it possible to zoom up on the Open Bazaar screen?
Let's find out. No, to make the text bigger?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, one little bug there is
Don't see it, sorry. So we're going to go, one video clip of Big Buck Bunny. I can buy two, apparently, and direct payment to Sam himself. We're going to pay for the order. He's going to send me over his Bitcoin address. So I'm going to copy. This is actually a link that you can click. I just don't have the protocol handler set up correctly. And we're going to send exactly this much Bitcoin. Okay. Everything's good. Let's go ahead and send that. And I'm going to type in my super secure 5-character password for my Electrum wallet.
Hope you guys secure all the Bitcoins with that password.
No, I use the extra secure 3-character password. All right.
Do you know if we're waiting on the next block before you get it?
The block's are cool, man. I was wondering, are we waiting on the next block for us to receive digital content, or is that something where it's
There we go. I believe it's as soon as it's in the mempool, it's treated as confirmed by Open Bazaar. Yeah. So let's see how Electrum works right now, because it's not a Bitcoin presentation unless you have minor technical failures at every. This is what happens when you work in an emerging industry, guys. Everything's cool and going to be here in 6 weeks.
So let's take a quick poll.
You-
Big blocks, raise your hand.
Oh,
How do you
jeez.
guys compare?
Do we have to start like
Blocks as they are, raise your hand.
Do we really have to start the holy war right now?
So, was that Bitcoin address generated for this transaction?
I believe it was, but you have to have Open Bazaar's team confirm it did.
Can you guys hear me?
They can type and it should pop up.
So Electrum, is that a popular one? I've never heard of
Electrum.
That's something that you wrote.
Oh, come on. Electrum is one of the most popular HD wallets. OB 0.002. There we go.
There we go.
And you see how nice that was once Electrum worked?
Yeah.
It was just, anyways. So perfect. We've got, payment's been sent. Payment was sent to Sampat. All right. So Sam, would you mind delivering that digital content when you get a second?
So I'm gonna unmute mine.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. So actually, I can screen share if that'll work for y'all. Give me a second here. Let me. There. Hopefully, y'all can see what I'm looking at here. So I got a notification that came in that said I had a digital an order placed. Right. So now I opened up the modal here and hit confirm order. I'm going to put the receiving address in. That's the address I want to receive funds at. The comment, whatever. And then the URL for the file, which right now is just a standard, URL. We can put in, you can password, use a URL that's password protected. I'm not going to, obviously, for this one. And then just hit save. And hopefully on your end, you just got a confirmation that we shipped the order.
Okay.
All right, so I did get the order confirmed and shipped. I can go over there and click on there. It'll tell me where to pick it up. Open file. Here's a nice link. No password. So I'm going to go ahead and go download Sam's file. So it's been saved in my downloads folder as videofile1.flb. So all right, we're going to pull up my console here. Let's make this bigger because I know how to do that. All right. Oops. There we go. So we're going to move from downloads / let's see, what was it? Video file. Come on. I'm bad at typing. Hold on.
You're doing a relative path here.
Oh yeah, / There we go. Thank you. I am bad at computers today, apparently. There we go. Video file 1.flg. There we go. I know. Okay, so here we go. I've got in my storage bridge CLI folder, I just moved in Big Buck Bunny dbb.flb, which is what I bought from Sam on Open Bazaar for $1. So we can, cat dbb.flb into mplayer's standard in, and it'll pop up a nice, so I bought this nice clip of Big Buck Bunny from Sam. Go ahead and quit out of mplayer, so you can see it working. So I have a downloads folder which is empty in this directory. So we're going to, on the storage CLI, we're going to, let's see, I'm using the staging environment today, so I gotta go, there we go. I can register a user. There we Okay. Same mistake 3 times in a row. I have been working 12 hours today, so you'll have to forgive me. So I'm going to go ahead and log in.
All this work, this is living the dream.
All right, and I successfully paired with the network. So after you log in, you can see all of the commands that you can run to interact with our object store. So the first thing you generally want to do is add a bucket. So in an object store, files are typically, put into a logical grouping, a bucket. It's not really got a technical purpose, generally speaking. It just helps you organize things. So we're going to create bucket, and we're going to call this bucket stuff. So once I've created the bucket, I can go list my buckets. And let's see. Yeah. Do this. And I haven't played with the -u command enough. Add bucket, that's what it is. That's why I'm having trouble. I'm dead today. So it's going to come back, and this time I actually created a bucket, and I can go list my buckets. It'll show up as a bucket.
Can you speak up just a little bit?
Yeah, sorry. So I created a bucket. It gives me the successfully created bucket here, and it gives me the ID of the bucket. And when I go list my buckets, it now shows up.
So I'm sorry, what's a bucket?
So a bucket is a logical grouping of files. It helps with organization. It doesn't have much of a technical purpose right now. In the future, it's going to help you organize like user access controls, so you can add users' keys to certain buckets and not others. It'll help you organize things on an app or user basis when you're developing on the platform. All right. So once I've got things, I've got this bucket now. So let's go through and we will upload a file. So we're going to upload file, and we're going to upload it to this bucket.
Space.
What?
You have extra space between Storj UI and
Probably shouldn't matter. Anyways, so let's see. We've got we're going to upload a file. We're going to upload, Big Buck Bunny that we just bought from Sam. And we have a nice keyring system right now.
So the keyring is you store all your files. You encrypt all your files locally. So that's just taking the password that you generated on your machine and storing it. So you're the only one who does that.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Do you have to reference the bucket by its hash?
You reference it by an object ID.
Okay.
So
you can't just say stuff?
What if you want to have 2 buckets named stuff?
That's why I was asking.
Yep. Okay, so what's happening behind the scenes right now is the file gets encrypted, split up into multiple shards, and the API behind the scenes negotiates a storage contract with peers on the network. The storage contract information is sent back to the client. The client splits up the file and sends it out to the multiple peers. Right now, this process is a little slow. We're still working on optimizing it. So does anyone have any questions while things are uploading? Yeah.
Use the term server client. How is that decentralized?
So what we're demonstrating right now is our bridge server. So this is a centralized bridge onto a decentralized network. All of the decentralized code is out there. It's just a little hard to demo a decentralized network. You're going to end up with a lot of console output that says, find node and a bunch of family codes, and it's not very interesting or useful. This is a centralized server built on top of the decentralized network to make it accessible, easy to develop for, to provide tools to manage your files, to provide tools to manage redundancy, encryption, your keys, all of those things that are really messy.
So when you do it for
so
there's a difference between running Bitcoin Core, which has GUI you can use, but it's impossible to use, and using something like Electron or some other application. So sure, you can do it through Bitcoin Core, which is the official client, but it would be an absolute pain. So for people who are running their own services or building a Bitcoin company or technology or whatnot, they're going to use the Bitcoin to build on top. But for the average everyday users that just want to use it, they're going to use a top level. So that's what the bridge is providing. It's abstracting everything that the network does and just going for a developer that's like, okay, I want to put a file in a bucket, I want to take it out. It takes care of everything that happens. So if you really want to move away from something like a service, you can run your own bridge. But the key point is that like we're not storing the encrypted bits. We're just getting encrypted bits of data helping you route that. You're actually uploading those and downloading those directly from and to the network. We're just helping you find where to. Right.
Yeah.
So again, we don't have access to the files. It's not uploaded to us. We're just saying, okay, like you should probably store your data here, here, and here because these guys are. Again, we don't have access to it. We don't have the data. It's really we just provide tools to make that simple, so you don't have to make a lot of calls.
I think of it like if you're using Alexa, for example, you have to connect to an SVB node.
Right.
But the SVB node on the back, sort of the back end can't steal it because it doesn't. It's a bridge again.
Yeah.
This is a bridge.
You know, to talk about Open Bazaar a little more, Open Bazaar is a fully decentralized network that anyone can participate in. Anyone can, expand on their code base, develop things for it. We're exactly the same way. Anyone can expand on our code base. Everything is released under AGPL license. And OB1 is the company that's to provide services to and on that network. And we're the same way. We're providing a service on that network. Anyone else can provide services on the network. They can provide the exact same service, but we think we're going to be better at it. And we are getting a really interesting error that I've never seen before. So this is going to get a nice GitHub issue.
That's the same one that I got today.
Oh yeah?
It's related to an issue that's going to be fixed.
Okay.
Big old class. So.
Great.
So we see the bug, guys.
Yeah, it happens. Like, we're always breaking things and then fixing them a week later. Let's try a much smaller file so that it'll error out in a much shorter time frame. Okay, there we go. Smaller file works. So we can go back to our, bucket here, and we can tell it to, list the files in the bucket. And so we can see now that it lists the cat1 that we just uploaded. It lists some metadata about it. None of this, the file itself is not actually stored in our service. The file is stored out there in the network. Our service includes metadata about it, like where to find that file and what file type it is. So that when you go to retrieve it, you have a really fast lookup to know where it is and how to get it and what it is and why you put it there. So we can go out, and we can download the file, and we download it, download file from this bucket. We can download this ID, and we're going to put it in downloads, which I believe is lowercase d down slash cat, not that, cat.jpg. No. This one is the bucket ID here, and this one is the object, file ID. Yeah, I believe we're using, we might be using UUIDs right now, which are not actually random. But they're not collision. We're changing that they don't collide, but we're changing that in the future. The goal is to move from a naive implementation to a more secure implementation over time. There's a lot of dev work to be done. All right, so we're going to go ahead and save that in download/cat.jpg. And you can see it goes out to the peer on the network and very quickly just downloads the entire file. And we can ls downloads, and we've got our cat.jpg that we can go open up or interact with. What I wanted to demo is we can take that big buck bunny and we can upload it to multiple peers. And we can, from the CLI, there's actually a command that's not download file, but stream file. For all of you guys out there that are developers, this pipes the file as it's downloaded to standard in. so we can take that and we can pipe it into whatever we want.
Answer
Sorry,
questions.
standard out, and we can pipe it to standard in on something else.
I have a question. Do you guys have anything other than a CLI?
We have a CLI, we have full APIs. This CLI, the client that it runs on, is a JavaScript library that you can just use in any JavaScript app. It doesn't run in web browsers right now because there's some issues with like cross-site scripting attacks that we're trying to get rid of, and some issues with browsers connecting to peers.
I guess my question is,
Yeah.
are you guys planning to come on?
So that's kind of a complicated question. We have a basic GUI that I can show you right.
So the core of what we're trying to do is one level lower than the application. So remember I talked about the Dropbox example, and how we're not trying to just create another Dropbox application, we're trying to take a layer under it. So we're working with a lot of users and developers to actually build this top level application. So the next couple of days, we're actually going to have a mobile app coming out. That's essentially a generic app that you can make photos and videos with and sync to storage and set up something like that. So those are coming from our community and our developers rather than us. Again, we're the layer underneath, and they're building the applications on top of you actually using it.
So we do have a basic GUI you can interact with. You can see bucket contents. You can't download or upload right now because of the browser problems I mentioned earlier. You can change bucket attributes and add public keys to your bucket so that you can authorize different people to interact with it. And you can add and delete buckets. So right now we have a few basic GUI tools, but we're really aiming more towards developers. We want to build tools that can be integrated into someone's application. Yeah.
So the example we've given here with Open Bazaar with the file, and then your example
Right.
with an app with photos, story.
Yeah.
Those are files, so I'm trying to understand your point of within the file-based storage object.
Right.
So
Okay, so like when you want to store things, there are a few basic ways you can do it. You can have a file system where everything has a specific place. It's like if I want to send you a letter, I send it to your home address. When you want to find a file in a file system, you need to have the address for that file. You need to know where in the system it's located. You need to know that it's in home/downloads in order to get that file back. So in Object Store, rather than knowing where the file is located, you pass in information about the file you want to get back. You say, I want to get back the file with this ID, or I want to get back the file with this hash. And the Object Store just keeps all of those files, dumps them on the disk wherever they fit, and when it gets a request that says, I want, a file with this hash, it goes out and looks at its metadata for each file and finds the one with that hash and sends it back.
Yeah. If I may, if I'm storing your file or parts of your file, is it plausible that
Yeah.
FBI came to my door and say, you're busted for storing these guys because you should have known that you're storing whatever.
No, people who are providing services like that, and us too, are covered by DMCA Section 512, which is a safe harbor provision for storing information on the behalf of customers. So what we're doing is we're working to put a legal framework where you understand your rights and responsibilities. It's all in plain English when you install the software, and you are, protected by DMCA 512 safe harbor.
There's no metadata that says, oh, this is such and such.
No, it's all encrypted. Everything that goes on your computer is encrypted. It's indistinguishable from random data.
And like you said, you're covered under US law.
So in addition to that, we're going to be trying to make tools where if the content of a file becomes public, people can make decisions based on the content and what they want to store. So something like a gray list where you could opt into, if you find out something is pirated, in fact, information becomes publicly available for some reason, you can stop storing that file. And we're also working on really weird stuff like DMCA notification tools, where if we get a DMCA takedown request, we can automatically take it down from your node with your consent. And all of these are to legally protect the people providing providing the service.
Can I delete things that I upload?
Yeah, you can delete things that you upload. What ends up happening in practice is you can never ensure that a remote server has deleted the thing you up. You can never ensure that they deleted it. You can be highly confident that they deleted it because you stopped paying them, and they were only storing it because you were paying them.
And they don't have the keys to the data anyway.
Right. So.
Of course. Can you show us the cost of uploading that file?
So the cost of uploading it, we're not charging users right now. We're in a free open beta. We're just trying to stress test the network a bit. What we anticipate charging our customers is about half of other object stores, so 1.5 cents per gigabyte per month to store, and transfer is billed separately with a much more complicated system.
Hey, James, real quick.
Yeah.
We have to get out of here.
Yeah,
Really
sorry.
quick, just bring it down 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Let's.
I would love to give Sam some more time to talk because I've been dominating the conversation for the last little bit, and I'm sure he's got some interesting thoughts.
Hey, can y'all hear me all right? Can I get a thumbs up if people in the audience can hear me? Okay, awesome, great. No, I mean, that was an interesting presentation. Thank you guys for doing that. I don't really have a lot more to say on my end other than on the digital downloads part that you just showed. Well, something we're looking to do is make it so that the person selling a digital good does not need to manually put in a URL, but as soon as their client detects that the Bitcoin has come into their account, it will deliver the file to the buyer somehow. Now, the way that happens is still yet to be determined. Again, all open source, so we're happy to talk with anyone who wants to help that integration happen. So anyway, that's the only thing I thought. Maybe a few people have some other questions. I don't know.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
So do you guys have yet an API, or are you working on building out an API for Open Bazaar so you can automatically?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. The long answer is Chris can tell you more about it.
I didn't hear the second part. That was so that people can do what?
Just to make it easier to use programmatic calls to search and update data on store sites, so you don't have to use the interface itself to handle everything through API calls.
Yeah. So right now, all the API calls are directed just towards like the user interface speaking with it. There's not a whole lot of like network crawling and that sort of stuff. In the API, yeah, that could be built in. For now, I know there's some people who are like writing little Python scripts and stuff like that to do it, just kind of using Open Bazaar code as a library for it. Not too difficult, but yeah, I think building out better tools for the community is something we want to do.
Go ahead.
Last two questions.
Some dude is trying to sell like illegal drugs or something on Open Bazaar.
Can you speak louder? A little louder?
Some dude is trying to sell illegal drugs on Open Bazaar. How will we find a way to prevent that? I get in trouble.
So, okay, sorry about that. I thought that we were going to make it through our first public meeting without drugs being brought up, but that didn't happen. So I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. Anyway, let me just answer this very quickly by saying a lot of people viewed Open Bazaar as the next Silk Road or the decentralized Silk Road, or like they wanted to see this become something that is used for like the drug trade and whatever. The way we view it is this: we are allowing people to engage in peer-to-peer trade however they wish. We're agnostic as to the listings, and there's no way, and there's no central actor in the system. So if someone does choose to use it for illegal or immoral items, that is their decision, and there's nothing that we can do about it. However, the way the network is currently designed, your IP address is in the clear. Now, in the future, that will not be the case, or I should say that'll optionally be the case. Because we're looking to move to IPFS, it looks as though IPFS nodes, and Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can use Tor or I2P or other obfuscation tools to make sure your IP address is not listed. So in the future, maybe this is going to become more popular than it is now, but right now, out of the, roughly 5,000 listings on the Open Bazaar network, only a very, very small fraction of them are drugs.
Yeah, the IPFS doesn't yet support Tor, but it would be easier to do on that than it would be on our current code base, just because of the way the transport layers are handled.
All right, it sounds like that's all the time you guys have, so thank you very much, and yeah, everyone have a great night.
So I saw on his computer, like those pepper seeds or something. So it takes a while, to grow those pepper seeds, maybe you get 200 some days so you finally get those peppers. And that's a while. So what if the person scams and you do something wrong? Will you still be able to have protection for such a long period of time?
Could we have someone repeat that?
Sorry. Can you come closer?
Hey, real quick, things that can take a long time to procure, something that will take 200 days, like growing those chili peppers. How do you ensure that you're not going to get scammed? Because that's a long time to have a transaction in escrow.
Yeah, well, I mean, Bitcoin can sit in there a long time. I guess the problem would be potentially volatility, right? The volatility risk of Bitcoin. You can actually do futures like contracts, hedging to lock in the price, although that's not built into the platform now, but you could do that if you wanted to. There's a lot of edge cases around services, how can a moderator determine the quality of services over a large project? And what you would likely do is actually break it down into smaller chunks and buy each one and have them, test the quality at that point. We haven't put a lot of thought into 200-day long orders or anything. So I don't know if we have anything built specifically for that.
Yes. Yeah. All right, one more quick one.
Yeah. Have you guys thought of integrating some kind of stable coin for exactly that kind of problem?
Yeah. Sorry about that. I'll get that. I'll remember that one day. Too late, probably. The answer is, have we thought about it? Yes, we have thought about integration with a lot of different projects and coins, and the conclusion usually is no, for a lot of different reasons. Some of it's just adding complexity to the code base or the project. Some of it is a lot of the altcoins or other projects aren't necessarily widely used, and the amount of effort putting them in isn't worth the what you get out from it. Like a stable coin specifically, I don't know. I haven't put a lot of thought into that. I know the person who does a lot of the sort of intellectual leading of the project is Dr. Washington Sanchez. He has put a lot of thought into the volatility question, and if you're interested, if you have some kind of pitch or something, please reach out to him, because he would be very interested to to figure out a solution to that problem, especially a simple one, other than creating futures contracts, which is kind of a little bit arduous.
Okay. Let's give a round of applause to our speakers.